Welcome to Recovery Unleashed, the podcast where we dive deep into transformation, healing, high performance, and recovery. I'm your host, Hannah Dalby. I'm the founder of Recovery Jungle, Recovery Unleashed. I'm an integral alchemist, food coach, a recovery expert, and also a retired professional Muay Thai fighter and current jiu-jitsu lover. In each episode, we explore what it truly takes to break free from addiction, trauma, self-sabotage, and unlocking a life truly filled with energy, success, and peace. Through my very own story of addiction recovery and raw conversations with experts, coaches, athletes, healers, we uncover the tools and mindset shifts needed to master recovery in every area of your life. This isn't just about healing, this is about unleashing your full potential. You're ready to reclaim your life, tune in, do the work, and let's rise together. Welcome back to Recovery Unleashed. Today we're diving into one of the most overlooked but powerful levers of your transformation, the gut and brain axis. My guest is Linda Conder, who I've spent so much time with over the last couple of months, and she's absolutely amazing. She's a gut and brain specialist who helps people get to the real root of their health challenges by doing the right blood tests and stool tests and all the tests that Western medicine often overlooks and doesn't interpret them in a way that is really actually helpful. She definitely changes a lot of lives, helping people overcome things like depression, stubborn weight, anxiety, and skin issues. And yes, there's a lot to do with food, and it's not just telling them what to eat, it's actually addressing the deeper gut and brain connection that runs the entire show for our mood and our energy and our overall vitality. The cool thing about Linda is she has begun her own work and journey with Integral Alchemy, experiencing firsthand how emotional and nervous system work creates a whole new layer of transformation. And she's even preparing to learn it as a practitioner so she can integrate it into her business. So whether you've been struggling with health for years or you just want to optimize how you can feel and perform, this episode is going to give you hope, clarity, and practical tools you can use right now. 3, 2, 1. Welcome, Linda, to the Recovery Unleashed podcast.
Thank you, Hannah. It's lovely to be here.
Linda and I, we met a few months ago now through one of my clients who'd done years of work with you, right? The way that Linda talks about food and talks about how the nervous system is connected to the gut and all of this like holistic way of dealing with things, I was like, this is who we need. I just come back from America where I was like, we need all of the testing and all of the things because we need to actually know, and Western medicine sucks. I'm like, I remember looking at your website going, thank God someone has freaking done this. Tell me a little bit about why you started this, what you're all about. Give us a little bit of an intro.
So let's rewind many, many years ago, back to my late 20s. I was always a big adventurer. I'd been on sailing boats through Papua New Guinea and sailing boats around the top of Australia coast, and just loved the adventure in life. And so in my late 20s, I saved up. I'd worked as a teacher, a science teacher, saved up all my money for a big trip, the round the world adventure, which was something like 11 different stops in 4 different continents. I planned it, and it was the dream trip. However, unfortunately, I didn't get very far into it. I went straight across to Africa and backpacked my way up through to Kenya. And I was volunteering in a youth home where they were taking children off the streets who were homeless, essentially, who were living off sniffing glue to try and suppress all the horrors in their life, and were scrounging through the bins for food. And they would offer them this beautiful, safe little farm on the outskirts of this town. And so as a teacher, I offered my services, and I was there for a few weeks and invited back to one of the, little did I know it was in one of the shanty shacks, which is, small tin shack, typically those that you see on the TV where there's an open drain running through at the front, there's dirt floor, really, really poor conditions. And I was in quite shock that we were living here. This is where we were encouraging the children to come and live in the farm rather than in the slums. And when I went into the house, her grandmother approached me. You can imagine this tiny, frail old lady, and she was offering me a plate of food and a glass of water. As an honoured guest, this was something that, was very precious to them. They didn't have a lot of resources and food. So I knew in that moment, I really shouldn't be taking this food. The potential of making me sick is huge, but I couldn't say no. I drank the water and I had some of the food and graciously said, thank you very much. But soon after that, I had to excuse myself and I was able to amazingly make it out of that little shanty town into the city centre just on foot and found the closest public toilet. I didn't want to ask them where their toilet was.
Yeah.
And I sat there for the rest of the afternoon with extreme diarrhea. And it was really challenging because I had about what was 15 cents in my wallet, which was enough to get me a taxi back
Wow.
back enough to get me back to the farm or a roll of toilet paper. And because the toilets there don't supply toilet paper, but I scrounged around through my backpack and luckily I'd been to church earlier that morning and I literally thank God for the pamphlets that they gave me. So I managed to get into a taxi. These there don't actually leave until the taxi's full of people. So I can't just charge the taxi for my own ride. I give them my little bit of money and we wait. And what ended up happening, I had 2 children sitting on my lap, and then the taxi decided to leave. So the whole time I'm just holding on so tight. And the taxis there, very funnily, to conserve fuel, they drive fast and then turn off the engine and roll to a stop and then start it up again. And so this was my trip out to the farm. But it didn't end there because that was the end of the sealed road. I had to then get on a push bike taxi on the back with a little cushion and hold on for dear life going through the potholes and the dirt road to get out to the farm. And long story short, they basically put me in a car and put me straight back into the hospital where I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. They didn't actually diagnose me there with ulcerative colitis, but that came further down the track. What I had was amoebic dysentery, which is extreme, watery diarrhea through an amoeba, a single cell organism that upsets everything. Mm-hmm. And they also diagnosed malaria. So I was in the hospital there in this little country town in Kenya. It was a tiny little hospital. Out the back of my window, there was a goat tied up on a pole that was bleating all night. So you can imagine the little situation.
My dad grew up in Kenya. I've seen a lot of
how limited and simple everything was.
Yeah.
So I decided that probably wasn't the best place for me to get the best support for my health. So I took myself off to England. And luckily, Australia has reciprocal care. So I actually went into a whole week of hospitalisation where they did lots of tests. They did a colonoscopy to check how things were going.
How many antibiotics did they give you?
Oh, pumped me full of everything.
Yeah.
Steroids, everything, because with the colonoscopy, they actually said, would you like to watch as we do this investigation? And so I was like, yeah, this sounds amazing. I'd like to see the inside of my intestine, of course. But I did weird. That. And wow, this is a whole new world that I've never seen. Amazing. But they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis then, which is very irritated, inflamed gut lining. It causes a lot of blood. I had a lot of blood coming out, which was very scary. And they pile you up with the medications and off you go. And they say, that's you for life. You need to be on this medication forever to manage these symptoms. So there I was in England going, I have barely just started my world trip. So I ended up doing a quick sort of bus tour around Europe and then decided it's time to go home and try to look after myself. So what I noticed when I came back to Australia was intense gut pain. I went back to teaching and I found that while I was trying to teach the kids, I would be hunched over, like cramping, and I'd be talking to them and then just cramps would come and I'd have to sort of turn around and be trying stoic and teach through it. And that was happening more and more often. Yeah.
At the time, were you like Western medicine, like, oh yeah, they know things? Like, were you in that train?
Yep. Yeah. I was actually seeing a gastroenterologist and they were going, there's nothing we can do. And then they didn't talk about diet at all. It was just these medications, which really, it stopped the horrible diarrhea and the blood, but it didn't stop the pain that I was getting.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the pain, it was fatigue, waking up so tired, dragging myself through the day, falling asleep in the afternoon when I got home. And I just put it down to, it's teaching because I'm constantly giving to everyone. It's a dynamic giving role. But then I started noticing more and more brain fog as well. I felt very distanced and I wasn't able to, what I thought I used to be able to multitask a lot more, get a lot more done, be more productive, have clearer thoughts. And then I noticed I was getting into these pits of depression, just sitting at the bottom of the deep, dark well going, I don't know how to get out of here. This feels absolutely claustrophobic and dark and horrible space. I hate this. How do I get out? There's either go down further, which I was, considering doing that to escape this, or how the hell do I climb back out of this hole? I don't know. And there was also anxiety. I'd never experienced it like this before, where I had to call in sick one day and I sat at the kitchen table, unable to move. I was just so scared about living my life and putting myself out there, and the criticism and the uncertainty and not having clear thoughts and being in a lot of pain and just overwhelmed by everything. And this was not like me. I was a full adventurer and traveler. I'm ready to take on the world. So at the end of that day, I realized I need help, and I called the doctor, and they got me onto a mental health plan, and I got cognitive behavior therapy, which was very helpful. There were great strategies, and I loved those concepts about, you're not your thoughts, and, your thoughts control your feelings, and you're in control of your thoughts. Awesome learning. But I was on my way to the doctor's clinic one day, and there was an interview on the radio with a gut bacteria specialist. And this was the first time that I'd ever heard that there are good and bad bacteria.
Wow.
They always talk bad bacteria. You need to get onto your antibiotics and kill those off. But I wasn't aware that there were good bacteria that you needed to encourage, and that they actually created a great environment that had flow-on effects to the rest of your body, including your mental health. These two worlds of the gastroenterologist and the mental health just combined and went, the gut issues are causing these mental health issues.
Yeah.
So I started diving into the research. I read lots of books. I've actually got, this book here. This was a pivotal book, Brain Maker by David Perlmutter. And it's all about how the bacteria affect our brain. Brilliant.
Yeah.
This was the cutting edge of the research at the time. And that it was literally mind-blowing, going, the influence of this bacteria and what it does in our body can totally affect our mental state. And so I just started doing so much research and applying everything that I'd learned to myself. It started with getting rid of sugar, which wasn't quite enough. I did notice some improvements. But then when I really started going into more of a strict ketogenic type diet, getting rid of all the processed foods, the processed foods altogether, I thought I was really healthy. I eat everything. So that's, I've got a balanced diet, and that's really good. But for me, I did it by myself based on my own research, and it was really, really hard. It took me 2 weeks to really start getting into this ketogenic state where I'm starting to use fat as an alternative fuel rather than the sugar as a fuel. And I remember 2 weeks in going to a friend's house for dinner and just starting to get the shakes and getting weak, and I could barely walk.
Glucose
and I have to go home. I'm really unwell. And I laid on the bed at home with a throbbing head and just go, I think I have to call the ambulance. Like, this is almost unbearable. So it's like the ketogenic flu that they talk about, because I didn't do it properly, and that now I know how to do it much better, more gradually. I've learned the hard way of what I should have done. But in laying there going, what do I need? What do I need? How do I get out of this? I just stuck with it. And the next morning, I woke up like a totally new person. I could not believe the difference. It's like I'd left the old Linda behind in the bed, and I was up like, boom, awake onto it. my brain was so clear. My
Yeah.
my energy was amazing. Like my energy used to go up and down because I was so
Yeah.
carbohydrate dependent. I'd
Yes.
burn that carbs really quickly and then I'd crash and then I'd get the
Yes.
hangries and I need to eat again. So all day I was up and down like this. But I noticed there's this amazing calm, consistent energy with clear thinking that just lasted all day. And I describe it like going through a tunnel, basically. We're going through this portal, really, from being, struggling with energy, clarity, moods, up and down all day, depression, anxiety, to going through this amazing portal where still to this day, that was probably 10 years ago, maintained. I haven't stayed on the ketogenic diet. I stayed on there for 2 years and continued those amazing benefits. But now I'm much more flexible. I will
Yeah.
use it as a tool, like in the days leading up to a podcast, for example. I will make sure that I'm doing all the right things to enhance my energy, my brain, etc. And then at other times, I might just ease off and cruise, but I use it as this great tool where I can really manipulate how I want to feel based on what I feed myself and how
Yeah.
that food gets turned into fuel for my body.
Yeah.
But not only that, it's fuel for my gut because a strong, healthy gut, I'm going to absorb all those great nutrients so much better. But the impact actually comes from the gut bacteria. So what I've come to learn is that for every single cell in our body, there's actually the equal number of bacterial cells in us and on us, most of them in our gut. So we have, I might just show you this little, if that's all right. This is a jar of actually sugar and colorants that I'm using as a display at a science fair this afternoon to show the students the gut bacteria or a representation of it, because in the average adult, we have about 2 kilos of gut bacteria, which is a huge amount when you think of it.
Mm.
And that's what this represents. It's 2 kilos of sugar. And there are 38 trillion just in our gut, basically, of bacteria. Now, these amazingly produce thousands of chemicals that are released into our blood every single second. So 37% of the chemicals circulating in your body right now come from the gut bacteria. So you want to make sure that you have the right healthy, beneficial bacteria that are producing all these amazing chemicals that are supporting your health. And they can get into your body and start turning on and off different switches, increasing your metabolism, helping to create neurotransmitters in your brain so that you're calm but also happy and you've got great mental clarity. They affect our liver and our ability to detox the toxins that we're creating. So when we have this amazingly positive balance of gut bacteria, it has these beautiful flow-on effects. And that's just what inspires me so much, because we can change these bacteria very, very quickly.
It does happen so fast. And I love that. Like, I have worked with dietitians and nutritionists for a lifetime because I've been an athlete, and not a single person has once said, do keto. And when I figured it out, because I was like, okay, like I have all of these dietitians, all of these nutritionists that have been like pumping me full of processed shit for so long. And even like what the restriction in food did to my body was like so bad. Like what did it to my gut health was so bad, even though it was like little tiny bits of, nothing, the starvation that was inside of that. And then it's like, all right, well, like, let's get your system working again. Just eat everything. And I was so sick and so inflamed, and figuring out that like how I'd feel inside being on a keto diet and even fasting, and we do it with all of our clients now. And, it's really interesting how you say, well, I did it for 2 years and those 2 weeks were really horrendous and I like thought I was going to die. And, men are actually really different to women. So when we're looking at the research around it and you're finding out all this stuff about ketogenic stuff, like, yeah, sure, men can do 6 weeks straight. They could do 6 months straight and probably be okay. We just need so much more nurturing. And so like doing that cycling in and out of things, it can be so nurturing for us, but still give us those weeks of high energy and clarity and all of those things. I reckon some of the most amazing work I've ever done is like 7 days into a fast, and suddenly I'm like this superhuman that can just do everything and is so calm and so open and so able to just execute on every little tiny thing. And it's like what the hell am I doing eating anything other than what is nourishment when I can operate at this level? And for a high achieving human beings, why would we do anything else other than nurture our gut and nurture our bodies and nurture ourselves and provide these environments where we can actually perform at such a high level and be the absolute epitome of the human beings that we can become? And it's just not that hard in some ways, right? It's not that hard in some ways. The science is simple, like just do these things, but then actually undoing ourselves from the culture and the conditioning and the reasons of why we need to put all this other shit into our bodies, I feel like that's really the hard part.
So many people that come to me now, because I didn't explain this, but now I'm a nutritional and environmental consultant, which is really nutritional and lifestyle medicine consultant. Because I changed the way that I have so much more energy and mental clarity, that I would get up really early and I started studying nutritional and environmental medicine, because I saw it came from a place of everyone needs to feel like this. I feel absolutely amazing through these changes. I want to learn how this all works so that I can really inform others exactly how to do it a lot easier than what I did. What I also love is that there's so many other flow-on effects for health conditions, not just mental clarity, which they're using this ketogenic style diet for Alzheimer's, diabetes, cancers. And unfortunately, it's not in mainstream yet. There is so much research out there in relation to the ketogenic diet and the benefits on all these chronic diseases. You know, it takes about 15 years for the research to filter through. Now, the research is going at exponential rates. 10 years ago, for example, there were about 300 papers on the gut microbiome in, let's say, PubMed, like a medical database of research. This last year, it was something like 30,000 just in that year. So the research is there, it needs to be looked at, and it needs to be brought to the people to be able to use it. And that's been my aim the entire time in studying, in setting up my consultation practice to inform and guide and make it practical. And people come to me and just go, wow, you know, I've been seeing doctors all my life and they've never taught me this. They've never shown me. I totally get it. And thank you.
Doctors just don't get the training. Like there is no nutrition training when you go to med school. How does it benefit the powers that be to take away all of the medication and just give people something that's really, really simple to follow? There's a little bit by design here. And I think that it's going to take people like us to be a little bit louder out there in the world. Like it's actually our job here to be as loud as possible. It's for the benefit of the world for us to create podcasts and content and scream and yell from rooftops like you don't need to live this way. There is a better way. It's not that hard. You can do this really simply, like eat a whole crap load of meat and butter and, you know, you're going to be okay. Like so much stuff gets healed. It blows my mind, you know, the things that walk into our clinic. And it's like, I didn't even know it was possible that we could solve these things. I was just trying to solve some little thing they came in with, and suddenly they don't want to drink anymore. And suddenly, you know, their fibromyalgia disappears and their psoriasis goes away. And they've gone from having to get a colonic, you know, every 3 days to going to the toilet 4 times a day. And it's like, it's so simple. We're just so misinformed. And there's so much crap that's being told to us. How can people possibly navigate all of that?
You're absolutely right. We need this revolution in healthcare where we are changing the paradigm where you go to your doctor, they will run the tests, and if you're in that, what they call the healthy range,
you're not going to die.
Okay, off you go. But only once you've tipped over that range, then we'll give you some medication as a Band-Aid for your symptoms, and you'll need to live like that for the rest of your life. That is not okay. So what
Not
I look
okay.
at is the optimal. I have a spreadsheet based on the latest research for men and women because they're different. And then I put all of the blood results in and go, what is optimal for females? You're getting to the edge of that optimal range. Let's work on that and bring you back in. And that in itself is extremely powerful. I can see through nutritional deficiencies, but how their liver's working, what their immune system's doing, and we can bring it back into this beautiful alignment through amazingly. Isn't that amazingly? It's really basic, but it's these pillars of diet and making sure you're getting what your body needs, but particularly what the gut bacteria need. I believe that it's, you feed them and they will feed you essentially. And it's
Yeah.
not what it used to be this big thing around what you eat, it's what you absorb. And I believe really that's partly it, but also it's not what you eat, it's what your gut bacteria excrete. These chemicals that they're releasing into your body have huge impacts. So that really comes back to these pillars of diet. Stress has a huge impact on how your body systems work, but in particular, your gut bacteria. You'll get a quick overgrowth of the bad bacteria with poor diet and stress.
Yeah.
Throw in sleep as well, which can put you really off balance and affect those two things, because when you don't get enough sleep, you want the quick carbohydrates and your stress level goes up. But then there's exercise, which is really important. The gut bacteria love you to exercise. Those chemicals that are released, that the good bacteria feed on those too. And then there's reduced toxins. Our food and water and our products that we're putting on our skin really affect our gut.
Yeah.
And then the last one is connection, which is one of the biggest pieces that is missing in our modern world. We're just not connected to our own body and what's happening inside. But as a result of that, our connections with other people around us are limited too. But we've always survived in a great tribe and community where we're all supporting each other. And that's become very distant. And so it needs to be a holistic approach. And unfortunately, a lot of other practitioners just look at this is the data. You're not quite there yet. We'll wait until you fall off and then we'll prop you up with some medication. And that is not okay.
Well, I mean, you look at even sugar, like we had, being on holidays, there was like a day where like, let's have all of the desserts. And I know this every time I do it. And the next morning we are in bad moods. We hate each other. Everything's terrible. The world's going to fall apart, and so, we spend the next day like, okay, like we're not eating till lunchtime, giving our gut a break. We're only eating proteins and fat for the day. And 24 hours later, we're like, oh, we're amazing humans again. Like it's that fast. So you think about like, oh yeah, well, I eat well during the week, but then I have this on the weekend. Okay, great. So then every Monday and Tuesday, you're having all of that gut bacteria turn into assholes and then screw up the start of your week. And then, oh, well, I had this random. And so it's not like, oh, but I've got balance because I have mostly good food and then I have these little bits. Those little bits cause such havoc on your entire system. And once you get really in tune, I've found, especially with all of the really, really deep alchemy work, because we're becoming so in tune with our bodies and sensitive to what you can actually feel, the sensitivity around it of like, I ate a piece of chocolate and now I can feel me be a little bit different than I was before. It's that quick and there's that much impact. People just don't notice because they feel so bad all of the time.
Yeah, it becomes their baseline. And I noticed that last week. I started to get less productive. It's like, oh, I'm feeling really a bit sluggish. Things aren't processing as well. And I started getting a rash on my face. And I thought, of course, I have started to eat more bread and more chocolate because I just went to the supermarket. Oh, why not? We're all fall for these things from time to time.
Yeah.
What I found was that I had one, and then the next day I had some more, and then the next day I had some more.
Because the gut bacteria wants more, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're not aware of what you're doing and how it feeds this cycle, you can easily fall off. But I was able to go, whoa, hold on, let's just do a bit of a check-in. And after a couple of days, I recorrected and got back again. But what was happening in my body was there's always a small proportion in everybody's gut of the more detrimental bacteria. They're called the bad bacteria.
Yeah.
But I describe it like a tropical garden, that if you want a nice, diverse range of plants growing in there, all different shapes and sizes and colors. And when you look at a picture of the gut bacteria actually under an electron microscope, it's
Hmm.
so diverse and amazing. You know, in our average person's gut, you might have 200 different types of bacteria. That has been significantly reduced hundreds of years as we've moved
Because
from a
we just eat the
hunter-gatherer
same
period.
shit, right?
Yes, diversity of our food has gone, it used to be huge as we were
Mm.
hunter-gatherers moving through, eating seasonally, huge diversity of food. And now it's this very narrow range. Some people only eat 20 different types of food, and that's very common, particularly in children. There's a lot of fussiness. And so that has a direct impact on your gut bacteria, because the gut bacteria, if you eat a more diverse range of different fibers, you get more diverse range of gut bacteria.
And that
And I
includes
love
herbs as well, right? So you can have like
herbs,
20 different
correct.
herbs and that gets you 20 different things in your week. So it's not like you have to eat 20 different fruits and vegetables, like different meats, different herbs, salts and peppers, and and then the different fruits. Like it can actually be quite simple. Even tea, right? Like you have a tea bag and it has the different things in it, and now you've got diversity. So it actually isn't that hard when you think about it, and it doesn't need to be like I'm an anti-fiber. Me and fiber aren't like the amount of help it's been to just do really, really high doses of meat and butter and fats and like have some berries and things like that. But like the herbs that I throw on my meat is just endless. And that's what
Yeah.
really, really works for me, because I had overdone it trying to fill my gut up when I was dieting with so much fiber. It's like it's just kind of had enough of it.
So yeah, I do recommend up to 50 different plant foods, but it's very easy to get there. People go, what, 50? How on earth do you do that?
Yeah.
And so I'll start the day with some Greek yogurt, which is really high in protein. And I'll add in some MCT oil to that for my brain fuel. And then I'll put
Yes.
mixed nuts and mixed seeds. There's 10 different fibers in that mixture, plus my mixed berries. I'm up to 15 just in that breakfast in
Yeah.
one meal. And I'm aiming
Yeah.
for 50 for the week. It's
Yeah.
so easy,
Easy.
especially when
Easy,
you're adding in
easy.
the herbs. Like when you cook your meat, I'm a big fish advocate. Put your herbs on your fish, fresh
Mm.
or dried. It doesn't matter. But it's that sugar that's feeding, and the processed carbs, because they get broken down very, very quickly, used as fuel by those detrimental gut bacteria. They
Mm.
overgrow because in a few hours, these bacteria just multiply when they've been given the fuel that they want. Below lots of gas as they do that,
Yeah.
but also can be pain because they're releasing toxins all the time.
Yeah.
There's a particular toxin called lipopolysaccharide, LPS,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
E. coli, which particularly feeds on sugars, will produce 1,000 times more LPS than any of the other bacteria. That damages the gut lining. They leach, so you get leaky gut.
Mm-hmm.
The toxin leaches into your blood, starts damaging your liver. It's one of the big causes of liver damage. But it doesn't stop there. It moves on and damages your blood-brain barrier, which used to be this protective layer, keeping our brain nice and safe from all these things. But no, it crosses into that barrier, and it's a big cause that I see of brain fog, but even depression. So there's a study where they've given healthy people a dose of this LPS toxin, happy, healthy people.
Mm.
And for 5 hours after the toxin, they've been depressed. And a
Sugar.
lot of people aren't aware that they've got levels of this constantly circulating in
Yeah.
their body from their bacteria.
Taking away, like even talking about the blood brain barrier, how easily can it be healed? Like you take away sugar, you take away processed
Yeah.
foods, you take away all of those things. How fast can the gut lining and the blood brain barrier be healed?
So, in terms of the gut lining, when the gut cells themselves will replace themselves every 3 to 5 days. So, that new lining is made every 3 to 5 days if you provide it with what it needs. And there's a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
process that I work through in terms of the 5 R's of nutritional medicine. And the first one is remove the stuff that's going to be damaging that lining. so that it's not constantly being bombarded and it can't rebuild itself. You know, if you're constantly hitting that wall, you can't build the wall.
It's like the whole thing of
Also,
taking supplements before you've taken away the shit food. Like you can't out supplement a bad diet.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
One probiotic is not going to fix it, which people
Yeah.
think it is. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll just
Yeah.
eat
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
current diet and
Oh,
have
I'll
this
have these
supplement.
like $700 of supplements to solve my issues when like just stop eating all of the oxalates and the sugars and the processed shit and like start there before you add the supplements in.
Correct. And then you need to replace the nutrients that you haven't been giving your body, that
Mm.
cell needs to grow, repair itself, and replace itself so that it's really strong. You don't have that leakiness. That's what happens. The cells get weak and the junctions between them start to open. And then whatever's in your intestine starts to come into your blood, creating this huge immune reaction. You know, that's where the war starts in your gut. And it not only creates a lot of inflammation throughout your whole body, it really damages those gut cells. They can't, some of those immune cells cause collateral damage by blowing themselves up, damaging that wall, but they can't repair when that's happening. And so you've got to take the things away that are triggering. Gluten is very triggering for that leaky gut. And then you need to bring in the raw materials to rebuild that wall.
Mm-hmm.
So things like your zinc and your vitamin D, but amazingly, our gut bacteria, if you feed your gut bacteria the right food, it provides everything. They don't actually stay in your system when you have them, but they're there for a period of time that start to really influence that environment. And a lot of them encourage the growth of your natural species that are already there.
So do you
We
think that
need
everyone
to,
should be having no gluten?
what the research shows is it causes leaky gut in everyone,
Yeah.
regardless of whether you're celiac or intolerant. The gliadin molecule, how I describe it, if you know your gut cells, I describe like a brick wall. There's all these cells joined with like mortar or a tight junction. And when the gliadin molecule from gluten comes in contact with that, it's like a little key in the lock that opens those tight junctions. And that's happening all through your intestines. Wherever the wheat is coming into contact with your intestines, you've got this opening. It may not last very long and they may close quickly, but that's different for everybody, their length of time they stay open. That's enough time to create this war, especially if you're having typical Australian diet, well, the standard Australian diet, which is SAD, the sad Australian diet of wheat bix for breakfast, muffin for morning tea, sandwiches
Yeah.
for lunch,
Yeah.
biscuits for afternoon tea, pasta for dinner.
It's so hard. You go out anywhere, you know, it's easy when I'm at home, right? Because I just have a freezer full of meat and I'm sweet. Traveling, you go to any cafe, any restaurant, and you look at, and it's just everything is covered in bread. And it's so, like, the culture makes it really difficult. And so there's so much preparation. And it's like, this is not do this for a couple of months and you'll feel better. It's like you need to change your entire lifestyle and figure out a way to implement and integrate this type of food and living into your lifestyle, and just get over it. Get over it that you have to prep food. Get over it that you have to organize things yourself, because like it changes everything so much, and what you find out there is just not going to be good for you.
That's right. And our modern world, unfortunately, this is one of the big reasons why we're so sick. We sit at a desk all day. We walk 5 steps to the fridge that's full of crap. We're not getting outdoors in the sunlight. We're bombarded with all this technology. And what I recommend is when you're at the supermarket, you only have to be strong once. You walk past those aisles of processed junk. You know, there's a whole aisle for biscuits and a whole aisle for cereals, and you've got to walk past them and be strong just once. Fill your trolley with all the real food, or shop at the markets, even better. And then that's what your house is filled with. So you don't have to open the fridge and see the Tim Tams or the chocolate bar and resist it, 10 times a day because you're bored and you're looking in the fridge. No, I can't have that. But you'll give in. I do. If I bring it into my house, then I'll eat it.
It's gone.
I know I will. So I'm just strong at the supermarket, which feels amazing, by the way. If you could walk past those aisles and go, yes, I've beaten them.
I
And
don't
I
even
know I'm
go
going
there
to feel
anymore.
amazing. So it's putting in that effort to start with to get those amazing returns.
Well, going back to the nature thing and being outside, because I've heard and I haven't actually, I'm fairly sure I've read studies, but it's just been so long in being inside of a forest, for example, and how that changes your gut bacteria. Tell me about that.
I don't know. I haven't read the papers about that, but what I'm imagining is that closer connection to nature. I find personally very, very relaxing when I'm out camping, and it might take me a day or two, but my nervous system just goes, "Phew,"
Mm.
and I'm super, super chilled. I consider myself a pretty chilled person anyway, because I make a lot of GABA. My gut bacteria help me with that, but so does my ketogenic diet. And GABA keeps me very, very zen. But then when I go out camping, there's a next level down. And then there's also the beautiful microbes in that environment that I'm
I
picking
think,
up and adding to my collection, plus the sunlight, which is also
yeah.
stimulating these great hormones. So I'm back to where I originally came from, in this beautiful connected nature space. And de-stress in actually has a massive impact on the gut bacteria, because they're always sensing our chemicals. You know, our stress, a lot of the bad ones live on cortisol and adrenaline, and they're just feeding off that, which we're in a state of that very, very often. You know, most people run like a marathon every day at their job, and they
Mm.
have very little time to de-stress and create those beautiful relaxing hormones, but also that vagus nerve connection between their gut and their brain.
But it'll be interesting for you to actually have a look at though, because I reckon I've read studies where actually the microbes that are in the air inside a forest actually give you microbes in your gut because there's so many microbes inside of a forest. And so that's why forest bathing is actually a thing for mental health because of the microbes that it gives your gut. And then that affects your mental health. So yes, it's stress free. Yes, you're connecting with nature. Yes, all of those things, but there's actually microbes in the air that you're breathing, and the ocean does it as well. There is microbes that are coming off of the ocean that get into your gut as you breathe them, and that is what's changing the brain and making you feel good. So like all of the things at once.
That reminds me very much of the living water. When I go out bush, I know it's really remote, pristine environment, and I don't recommend this, but I will often drink from the creek. If I
Me
know that
too.
it's clean and pristine,
Yeah.
and you know, there is the potential for upwater disturbances that I'm not aware about. Could be animals in there that are doing their business, that, you know, there's that potential. But I love the idea of getting those natural microbes from that beautiful crystal clear water,
Yeah.
but also that living water energy. That's the water that we've been drinking from for such a long time. And
You know, we've been doing
unfortunately
it for that
now our
long way,
water
aren't
is,
we?
yeah, we're so far from that, in that it's piped and there's so much chlorine added to kill off those bacteria. And yes, that might be beneficial in stopping the bad bacteria, but unfortunately, when we drink that, that kills our good bacteria too. And that's one of the things that I highly recommend. You get a good filter and remove that chlorine,
Yeah.
because if you're being really good and drinking your 3 liters a day, then that's a lot of chlorine killing off your good bacteria.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I used to do it. There was a waterfall I lived next to, and I used to hike up there at 3 o'clock in the morning and fill up water bottles and take them home. That would be my water for the next couple of days. And you know, I'd go camping out in the middle of nowhere and just take empty bottles and drink those for days. And my partner gets upset with me. He's like, you have to boil it. You have to, you know, like you can't just drink out of creeks. And I'm like, yes, I damn well can. And like, I feel there's something about it. I'm like, no, this makes me feel amazing. There is something magical about doing that. And we've been doing it for millions of years. Like, I'm sure it's going to be fine, especially when it's coming from a top layer, like a top of a waterfall or a top of a mountain or something like that, somewhere that's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed. Unfortunately, I have seen some people in my clinic that have, you know, amoeba and things like that, and parasites from drinking water from natural streams, unfortunately picking up some
Living
bad things.
life on the edge, Linda. We're just living life on the edge.
But they, you know, that's an opportunity too, because they come to me and they learn how to correct the imbalances and really are better off as a result.
So, talking about all the nervous system and connection and that, tell me why the diet and the supplements can sometimes not work without the emotional and nervous system work.
When people come to me and I'm making all these great changes, getting rid of the rubbish, getting in the good food, the supplements, they've got so many things in balance now. You know, our body is a very, very complex system with lots of little cogs and processes happening. When you provide your body with what it needs, it works smoothly. So I describe it like in an optimal world, we would be like a sailing boat. We'd be off sailing the beautiful oceans, off into the sunset. Sure, there'll be times where it's beautiful and calm and lovely and we're watching the birds, but other times there'll be turbulence and rough storms. But because our boat is in such an amazing condition, we can move with those changes in the environment. But unfortunately, so many people have anchors that are just either holding them down in that water or keeping them tied to, the wharf, and they can't get there. And so I help them identify these anchors through a whole range of testing, gut bacteria, blood tests, DNA. So we can identify them. If you're not aware that there's an anchor there, you can't work and pull it up. So we can do all this great work, pulling up all the anchors, but there's something still holding them back. And I've done the best that I can do. It's that last part, that last anchor that hasn't been worked on or initially identified as being a huge anchor. So, and that is the emotional anchor that is stored emotions in their body that is stopping those systems from working optimally. It's really holding them back. And that comes from past events in their life that they have interpreted in a certain way to keep them safe in that environment. That's what our body is always doing. It's always assessing and working out, how do we stay safe in this crazy world of ours? And that it develops these emotions around certain events and we store those in our body. And unfortunately, that stored energy can really interrupt the processes of our cells at a cellular level. And this is where I think it's called, somatic work, where I see somatic work as cellular energy work.
Yes.
Because those cells, you can give them all the great nutrients. You can make sure that they're absorbing the beautiful nutrients. They're getting rid of their wastes. They're making their fuel energy beautifully, efficiently to generate energy. But if there's an energetic block in those cells have been wired or been told to not make enough of something because it's going to keep them safe. The genes may have been turned down to go, no, if you make more of this, that's going to create this in your body and you don't want to do that. We need to keep you safe. All right. So we're just going to turn the fires right down. You're not going to have lots of energy because last time that happened, that created that and you were unsafe. So we're going to turn that right down.
I mean, I love that with the gene expression because, I see all the testing around gene expression and I'm so resistant to it because I'm like, no, I know that it's just an expression. And with the deep emotional work and releasing all of the traumas and the triggers and the somatic things, my genes will express in a very, very different way. So I don't even want to look at what it's expressing like right now and be held to that title of like, this is where you're stuck and this is what you might need, because no. Like I release all of this stuff and open my capacity and know that it's safe to be in the world in every which way, in every scenario, in all the possibilities. My genes will express in the way that's good for me.
So here's a great example. A lady came to me who 20 years had been essentially living in a bubble. This is an extreme case. She would react to everything in her environment, from smells. She'd go into an office place, someone's perfume would be enough to put her into fits of vomiting and in bed for days, just the smell, let alone her foods. She was on a really restricted diet. She'd try to break out of that diet and she'd just be reacting. And she would have rashes. There were so many symptoms she was experiencing. And she came to me after 20 years of trying to find answers. And she had been all around Australia. She'd just come from waiting 8 months to see a specialist on the east coast of Australia. And she flew across there to see this person. And they essentially said, it's all in your head. There's nothing that I can do, because her bloods looked fine. They looked at her bloods and said, there's nothing going on here. It's all in your head. And they were partly true in that when I looked at her bloods, I realized, yeah, there is nothing going on in this snapshot of when the bloods were taken. You're probably well enough to get yourself. Initially, she said, no, I've had a great life. And, look at me now. I'm extremely, although I've got this horrible, debilitating condition, I'm super positive. I have my affirmations and, I know I'm going to beat this. And had this positive attitude for 20 years and I can do it. And she didn't have anxiety or depression, but she couldn't stop these overreactions of her body. And then I was able to help her to a limited extent. I was able to help basically mop up some of the symptoms. When this happens, then I need you to do this and we can really reduce the symptoms. But I couldn't get to the root cause because when she actually looked deeper, it was a traumatic experience 20 years before where her outer world had become very, very unstable. Very scary for her, uncertain. And through that experience, her mind had told her cells in her body to support her and help her as best they could. It's this environment creating the cellular function and the genes and turning them on and off. So her genes for her immune system basically had been super upregulated. So her immune system was just going, we're going to protect you. It's all good. We've got you. And so everything that came into her from her outside world was a threat, according to her immune system. So the littlest things, the thing that she might touch on the bench, she would react to, and there'd be this rash.
Yes.
The food, she would, and she's vomiting it out like an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
And that all stemmed from feeling unsafe in their outside world, that being interpreted through her mind, through her hormones into her cells, and they're going, we've got you, we're going to protect you. And what the case was, she hadn't actually gone in to recognize that in the first place, that there was trauma and that it created this, but also to go, it's okay. We're safe now. You don't need to do this anymore. And it's like that. There's that story of the Japanese officer who was posted to an island in the Philippines. And during World War II, when the war ended, his commanding officer needed to come to the island and say, you have to stop now. This is a new directive. He was still continuing to fight the people on the island for 29 years because that was his original directive. And it's kind of like that in our lives, that there's an event, we tell our body this is the way it needs to respond to that event in the environment, and sometimes not always beneficial long term.
Yeah. Well, it's and I think sometimes it's just an outdated system. It's not that you're broken. It's just an outdated system and it needs upgrading because that was really, really good for you in that moment. But you're in a different life now and you just need to upgrade the system.
So once this lady did this work, it was a few sessions in that she actually went into this supermarket where she'd been avoiding for years, filled her trolley with a whole range of food that she hadn't eaten in a long time, went home and ate it. And had no reaction because she told her body it's okay. It
knew where it was. It knew what year it was in. It knew where she was and that it was safe. And the actual energy was done. So tell me your experience with Integral Alchemy from, getting to experience it from my end.
So from my experience, it's different because I'm not a sick person in that from top to toe. From my perspective, top to toe, I love my body. I'm so grateful for it. I wasn't always like that. That is for sure. But now I'm in this beautiful space where I appreciate it and love it. It can do everything. I'm running up massive hills with my 12-year-old. Let's look at these everybody's got them, these emotional blocks that could be limiting how I live my life, holding me back from doing the things that I really want to do. I've been this great adventurer, but there's still these, hidden fears, or there's still these things that play out in my life that affect not only me, but the people around me. Not always positively because, I might be triggered by something. And then that leads to me reacting not the best, and this cascade of effects create the stress in me, but also affects my relationships. And that's the last anchor that we really want to pull up to get that boat sailing amazingly off into the sunset to live our dream.
Well, the relationships are everything.
Yeah, with yourself and the people around you.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm finding. I'm going back into, well, what is this feeling, and where does this originally come from, and why do I believe that? And it's really not that helpful to be holding on to that, because this is a new life and new times, new environment, and let's learn to let that go and see it for what it is, and appreciate it. It's been helpful in certain aspects, but I don't need it anymore. Let it go. And then it's about letting go of those anchors so that it can be fully free and flowing, and it's a beautiful, light, enlightening space.
What's changed in your life and your business in the last month as you've been doing this?
I'm moving towards really understanding my power and that deeper connection and compassion and empathy with others, and seeing that we're really all the same. We all really have these underlying, I need to be seen and heard and loved and feel safe, and boom, I'm straight there. I get it. And so many people now I see, and I think because of this space, they're opening up a lot more. When I do say, is there any trauma? They're telling me. They're not, nah, I'm okay, all good, Because of my own business, that I'm ready to be seen and heard as well.
I mean, it's such a huge thing for a business owner to be safe, to be seen and heard. You want to make an impact on the world. And I love what you're saying there, because you've both integrated, I deeply have compassion and empathy for others, which allows you to hold such a beautiful space for people that you're trying to help, and it puts you above yourself, and it's like, now my purpose is greater than myself. And when your purpose is greater than yourself, the capacity that you have and the energy that you have expands so much. And then you've got all of that, and then you now need to be able to be seen and be heard so you can create that massive impact. So those two things, as a business owner that wants to do a business that is for impact,
that's the work. It's exciting working with you and diving deep, feeling those beautiful release, and then stepping into that space that's just opened up. It was quite limited. I used to be terrified of public speaking. I was a school teacher, and you would have thought, pretty confident in front of groups. No way. I couldn't even speak at my brother's wedding. All I had to do was read out a poem, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that.
And now you've nearly done an hour straight.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I find is, when I'm really passionate about something, and now that I'm not so concerned about how I look and my ego and, protecting myself and, concerned about judgment from other people, whatever.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to share with the world to help people. I would love everyone to feel as amazing as I do, and that's beautiful. What drives you as well. If we had billions of people running around the world, with similar states as us, optimal,
it would be a very beautiful world.
Body mind connections. It'd be a very different world.
And so you're thinking about learning integral alchemy?
I am. I can very much see how what I do connects with the integral alchemy, and something that I can offer as well, that I'm not sure which would come first. I think they might need to be integrated together, because so many people can't reach that high level of health until they've done this release work, or they can't quite get the mental connections with their body either if they're in a state of where there's not enough clarity, and they're still very distant in their mind. So I think doing them together, where you can get a bit more mental clarity and you can connect more in tune with your feelings, they go hand in hand. So I'm really excited about learning. One of my missions is to bring the research to the people that need it, and there's huge positive benefits, the research around this and bringing it to as many people as possible to just optimize their lives.
Well, it does work hand in hand. Like, inside of the clinic at Recovery Jungle, it is hand in hand, because sometimes people just won't follow through on the things you're telling them to do when there's resistance there. And that resistance can come from all sorts of strange things. So while I might be sitting here going, okay, well, like, I need you to do 3 weeks of keto, and then we're going to add in, and I want you to do this. And they're just like shut down because there's something that needs them to keep sabotaging, which is actually self-protection. So doing it hand in hand is the most potent thing ever. And I love that what you're doing is so holistic. I wholeheartedly believe in going, okay, well, if we give you the emotional work and the food work and the exercise and all of these things in one place, the resistance gets moved out of the way of all the things that I'm asking you to do, so that you never have to be told by me to do it again. You just want to because it makes you feel good. And the shift that happens can happen in weeks or months rather than over years. Because you can cognitively know something for a decade and still not implement it. You can cognitively know something for 50 years and still not implement it, because your system is trying to keep you safe from something that doesn't quite understand. And so doing that hand in hand, I think the impact you'll have will be freaking mind-blowing, and I'm really excited for that. As much as, and I think, while we're being on this podcast from both perspectives, clients at the Recovery Jungle and clients that I'm working with online, is like, if there's gut issues going on, it's like, I'm sending you to Linda, like, we can work as a team. And for Linda's clients that, are doing all the gut stuff and there's resistance there, I can come on board and work as a team. And also, I'm a trainer for Integral Alchemy, so I also want other people like you, Linda, to be able to have this in your hands, because I can't alchemy the entire goddamn world. And for you to be able to put that inside of a place and give people that together at the very, very same time, this is what starts changing the world, because it's not just one little component of it. People become whole and sovereign. They become sovereign in themselves because now they can make those decisions by themselves. They're not reliant on everything outside of them.
Because what will happen is it will start to snowball, I think, because when you come from a space where you're feeling wonderful in your body, but the way you're interacting with other people isn't limited anymore, the flow-on effects that has to the other people around you, they will no longer be reacting defensively and aggressively as much, because you're presenting to the world differently too. So there's these flow-on effects and these snowball effects within workplaces, within families, and they'll hopefully as well, potentially even be able to just start teaching the other people. I'm talking to my daughter about a lot of this already, and she's very insightful, talking about people in her life, really their past experiences, how that's affecting the way they interact and treat her, for example. And she's having a lot of compassion for them and saying, I really want them to release those past experiences.
And your daughter's 12, isn't she?
Yeah, and she came up with that herself. But This is the time, through her own observations of these people. But that's the kind of lens that I bring to the relationship too. So I'm talking to her about this, and then that changes her lens in her social and family dynamics. Yeah. So then she's got more compassion. She's not going, no, you listen to me, blah, 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 and creating that defense and attack, which can just lead to relationships going right down the drain.
Well, it comes back to that whole thing of like, you want to change the world, you have to change yourself first. What are 3 things that someone that might be struggling with skin issues or mood disorders or, gut related things that they might have heard inside of this going, oh shit, maybe this is my gut. What are 3 things that they can do straight away?
A lot of it comes down to initially the diet. The two biggest things that I see are diet and stress. So
sugar.
Just start the sugar, is in the diet. So I think one of the best things you can do is just start noticing, what are you putting in, what's coming out, and what does it look like when it comes out, and how does it feel in that journey along the way? So I have an online membership, and that's one of the first tasks. It's called Gut Feeling Collective. And that's one of the first tasks is fill out this journal, basically. I want you to be a detective. Really observe what's coming in. You may even start noticing, why are you choosing that food to come in the first place? How does it feel on its journey through the body, and what's coming out at the other end? And start really being your own little detective. And you don't have to be concerned about it. You just notice. And I think that's a really empowering place to start from, because then you will start making wiser choices. Like you said, sometimes we go down and we're starting eating, you might binge on some sugar, and then go, I now know, from years of experience, I know why I'm feeling so bad. It might be sugar, it might be alcohol is another huge one. So, and then, of course, look at your diet and removing as much of that processed crap. So the processing is, taking the beautiful raw food that has all the enzymes, has all the nutrients, has some fiber in there. Or not necessarily, it might be the meat or the eggs that's just beautiful and rich in nutrients, sending it off to the factory, stripping it out of all the goodness. Flour, in the production of flour, removes 20 different nutrients from the wheat, and they only put 4 back in, but most of the fiber as well. And it's just basic. I call it cardboard. The end product comes out. It's just cardboard with lots of chemical additives in it that disrupt your gut too. So do you really want to be putting that into your body? Our cells are incredibly amazing. I've got this awesome, it's a video animation of how the cells work. And it is mind-blowing of what's going on in those cells. And they need these beautiful building blocks to function properly. They're not going to get any of that from the processed food. They're just going to get a lot of damage. And that's, leading on to disease. So bring in the beautiful, real food. So
I love that. So you've got journal about what you're actually, take notice of what you're actually eating and how it makes you feel. Take away all of the processed food and start thinking about what is actually real. I love the thing, can you catch it or can you pick it? If it's one of those two things, then you can probably eat it.
Yeah, I love that. Catch it or pick it. That is beautiful. And then I always go, is this better off in the bin or in my belly? And a lot of the time, and I'll do that at the supermarket, you look at the ingredients, what the heck? There's 50 ingredients here. I don't know what this is. My body's not going to know what it is. That's better back on the shelf. Or if it's in your home, it is far better off putting that in the bin than in your body.
Yeah. Getting it out of the house. I've got a client that we did 12 weeks of all the alchemy was really the intention was around the health and the food, and all sorts of stuff came up inside of it. And then after the fact, the integration that happened, and he's just gone into the fridge and thrown out everything, all of the kids' ice blocks, it's we can't have it in the house anymore. And it was really interesting because the sugar and those snacks were built around connection. And so it was actually having to integrate, how can I build connection that isn't through sugar and isn't through delicious snacks and isn't through these things that are bad for me. And until connection could be formed in another way, only then it was safe to throw it all out, right? And it's true. Connection and food is a very, very tied in thing. And, I notice it as well, going to hang out with friends. And it's what naughty things are we going to do? Let's make some poor decisions. That's fun. And so finding new ways to build connection. But when it's, especially with different lifestyles that you've been brought up in, there's some cultures that food is everything in connection. It is the entirety of connection. And so there can be a lot of work inside of that to even be able to get to a place to throw out that food. And, it's all well and good to go, stop eating sugar, throw out the crap, don't eat processed food. These are all great things. And I think everyone almost knows it now. And so it really does come back to where is this becoming a safety for you? Where is it a requirement to keep you safe? Because maybe it's linked to connection. Maybe it's linked to you not having to think about or feel the things. And so it really, it has to be, both things have to be done together at the same time, especially if it's been a lifelong habit.
Can be a habit. from childhood all the way through.
Yeah.
That this was how I felt loved. They were giving me treats.
Yes.
And that's where I work with parents as well, helping with fussy eaters. I encourage the parents to be the role models, but also establish that great connection that dinner time and meal times is about sitting down, beautiful, healthy food that you're modeling. They may not be touching it at this stage, but at least they're being exposed to it. You're modeling it, but it's not about the food. It's about you engaging with them and connecting and creating that safe space and that loving space where they're happy. Before you know it, they're eating because they're listening to your stories and they're engaging, and they're not fixated on this thing that might be giving them stomach aches or making them feel sick or just giving them that horrible sensation. It's not about that. It's about the connections that they desperately want.
So working with you, how does that happen?
Great. Well, I've already mentioned my online collective. That's at my website, lindaconder.com. And if you it's Gut Feeling Collective, and you can register to join that. And that's where every month we have a new theme, and it's just a nice, healthy theme. It's not anything strenuous or onerous or overly challenging. It's just something to consider and think about. Like the first one is just checking in. How am I feeling when I eat this? And then if you've got any questions based on that little healthy habit, then you can pop them into the chat, or we have a live Q&A once a month where you can join in, ask your questions. You might want to submit your questions earlier, and myself and Laura, who's my nutritionist, we will, answer your questions as best you can. So basically you've got me as an expert on call in this collective. Then if you wanted to, there's lots of resources in there too. If you wanted to go into the deep dives, there's another section there available. It's Gut Feeling Deep Dive is the area, and that's where I really come to life, because I love the research, bringing the research down and explaining the nitty-gritty about which types of bacteria help make GABA to help you feel chill, and how do you establish that. If you've got this particular gut concern, what is the whole process around improving that, where we really dive deep, the gut-brain connection, the research, and in particular, my favorite is the microbiome and their huge impacts on our body. But also you can, if you want consultations, there's a booking available on my website as well, which an initial consultation is an hour, and we go through everything, your history, your lifestyle, your diet, all your symptoms. And then I put together a plan and work through that plan with you over time, bringing in all the blood tests, the gut tests, and basically doing that for you. If you wanted to do a more intensive 2-month, I call it like a health master plan, where we bring everything in, we just find out all your anchors, or your puzzles, pieces of the puzzle, and fit them together into a beautiful master plan for you. And I guide you through that each week, basically holding your hand so that you can really achieve the goals that you're after in a very supportive way. And that's what the online collective is about, being fully supportive. But that's what my one-on-one processes are about too. Where are you at? What do you need? What are your goals? I'll bring my knowledge into that and guide you towards your goal.
So both ways are available. Also, if you're thinking about doing the joint work of having Alchemy and gut specialist at the same time, you can go through Linda or go through me, and we can work together as a team to support. If you like the idea of learning Alchemy, all of those links will also be in the show notes. I think, it's very, very exciting to be able to work together with you, Linda, as a team with our clients. And until the moment that you become your own integral alchemist and you can start changing the world just as big. All right, well, thank you so much, Linda. This has been amazing. We've talked for a very long hour and a half, and I reckon we could do it for another 6 hours, but let's just do it again sometime. Recovery Jungle clients that are listening, if you are already a client of ours, let me know if you want to chat to Linda. I will organize that, because she is essentially a little back pocket part of our team now. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you.
I'll speak to you soon.